The music industry is vast and dynamic, okay? Encompassing everything from major record labels to independent artists. One thing that unites all musicians is the need for compelling cover art or branding. Album covers are often the first point of contact between the artist and their audience. They convey the genre, the mood, and the identity of the music within. Artwork is more than just a visual representation. It's an essential part of an artist's brand and can significantly impact the audience's perception. Great artwork can capture attention and convey the mood and the genre of the music. For example, what do you feel when you see this album cover? How about this one? Lastly, how do you feel about this one? Now, what even makes a cover art good? That it can catch a potential listener's eye even in a crowded market. Let's talk about a couple of covers that were influential during the time that the album came out that you can still resonate with today. All right, for Young Thug's Jeffrey, for example, when he popped out with that dress, everybody was talking about it, and it drew even more attention to the album that he was dropping. He went for the attention-seeking route on this album cover. But not only is it a great piece of fashion, an art piece, if you would like to say, the album cover is very minimal. It has minimal colors and minimal design. It's based mostly using the photography. And that photography, he's not even showing his face. It's mostly just bringing attention to him wearing this quote unquote dress that pushes the lines between masculinity and what's masculine and what's not. But definitely a legendary album cover of its time. Even in Travis Scott's Astroworld. Now, this album cover not only caught attention, but created a whole different world that the artist and his audience can live in. Just by having this album cover, which was partly photography, partly photo manipulation, comes the theme of it being an actual world, which is Astroworld. And he turned this and flipped it into concerts and experiences and even pop-up shops, all based on this. He even had an actual blow-up head that he ended up making based on this album cover. And I think this album cover is just amazing in a sense. It just brings that nostalgic feeling of going to those carnivals and those amusement parks as a kid. Since this album was a heavy rage, heavy concert album, he wanted you to have a time, not only when you were listening to it, when you went to the actual facilities. So here is a picture of them taking the actual album cover and it being replicated in real life. That's just another way that you can go about it. And another thing that you think about when you're making these album covers, how is this gonna elevate and even bring more of the music to life? I love the Astroworld cover. Speaking on worlds and themes and presence, for Tyler, the Creator's Igor album, it was just a pink background with a black and white image, but he had a whole aesthetic that went along with this album and its cover, from the down to the hair, to the glasses and everything. It was a theme for it. And that's just another idea of like a creative genius. How do you take what you make on paper and bring it to life? So it's not only just a cover, but it's a visual representation of the audio experience. I just want to drive that home. Now, with the Igor album, it was very cut and paste, mostly just his face, just focus on his face with a strong pink background. And even had a logo made for the album, which is the IGOR logo that he could have flipped and put on t-shirts and things like that. So being able to be brandable with the actual cover itself. Don't just make a cover to make a cover. So you always want to think deeper. How can this help the artist make money with merch? Or how can this make the artist represent whatever it's supposed to represent, whatever the artist is or the genre of music that you're doing? How is this cover gonna make them a bigger or larger than life figure? Let's just step out of hip hop for a second. Let's talk about the Iron Maiden Killers cover. Now, if you know about Iron Maiden, you've probably seen it in Target, Walmart, PacSun, Hot Topic. The branding for the whole Iron Maiden's cover scheme speaks to the whole band itself. I can't even, if an Iron Maiden band member was walking down the street right now, I probably wouldn't know who that is. But if that band member is wearing this mask with an Iron Maiden shirt, I'd obviously think that they were part of the group in some way, shape, or form. Now, if the artist is one of those dark, mysterious artists and they don't necessarily want their face or all their looks out there, because sometimes they're not the best looking artists, but they have a lot of talent. And some people like Daft Punk like to keep their identity low key so they can still continue to be, you know, normal human beings. They don't necessarily have to be famous. So some people like that. Keep that in mind, because some artists is just going to be very troublesome for them to partake in the actual creation of the cover art. Now, back to the Iron Maiden Killers cover. This character and that font is the whole branding for the Iron Maiden band in itself. It's one of the top 50 covers ever. From the aesthetic of the cover to the logo mark, they can put that on t-shirts. They can flip that to movies. They could have probably made a little short animated series based on just the logo doing stuff, and they could have used that character and made an animated series. Or lyric videos or animated videos or visualizers to their songs if it was more relevant today. Probably not back then, but like now, if they wanted to even flip that content, they can use that and make animated series based on their songs and stuff like that. You got to be thinking like that. How do you take one piece and be able to flip it to 100 different other pieces of content or other ways to use it? I'll do one last one because I like to do different eras. So even T.I.'s Paper Trail album, if you were a kid during when did this album come out? Like 2008, 2007, something like that. But yeah, 2008, let's just go with that. 2008, this time T.I. was still coming off the blazing hot little run that he had. And he had to go to jail for a certain amount of time for whatever reason. But he went to jail, and then I feel like this album spoke to a Paper Trail. This is a song where he had Justin Timberlake. So it's like it's a collage of different papers shaping the face of T.I. And it's all of, you know, the documents from when he went to jail. He's been in and out of jail. People been suing him and stuff like that. This was him trying to change his ways, going into a new chapter of his life. So I feel this album cover spoke highly to his new chapter in life. I felt having a paper trail is fire. How else were you going to use paper? And I don't know if they did this digitally and created collage, but what would have been even more dope if this was an actual paper collage that they made. If it was a like 30 foot by 30 foot paper collage and it was like an art piece somewhere, and they probably would have took a picture of it. And then you could have took that art piece from place to place and traveled and created a museum around that piece. I mean, if you didn't have that much time and you just need to do it, digital is cool, but you got to think outside the box. Like, I can collaborate with a painter, or I can collaborate with a mixed media artist and create my vision, but I have the creative direction type thing. So just think about that. Now that we understand the role of cover art, let's dive into the essential principles of design. These principles will guide your creative decisions and help you create visually appealing and effective cover art that's actually good. I don't want to get into it too deep, but let's talk a little bit about color theory and how colors evoke emotions and set the mood for your design. Here's a quick overview, but we're going to go into it in depth in a later section, okay? Let's talk about warm colors. When we talk warm colors, we're talking the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and how they evoke a feeling of warmth, excitement, and energy, okay? We've all heard the Drake Take Care album. If you haven't, I don't know, yeah, you should go listen to that, all right? But anyways, this whole color scheme for the album was browns, blacks, beiges, all those type of like really earth tony colors. And it was definitely rapidy rap, deep synth type of album. This is one of a classic albums from Drake. I think it's his best album actually, but I feel this album just speaks to it. When you see this album cover from anywhere, you'll just know, oh, Take Care. Even if he didn't have Take Care in the corner right there, people would have known this is from the Take Care album. And it's very, very simple. It's just him sitting alone at a table, probably reflecting on all his success up until this point, with some simple paintings in the background. And this is just a photo. So they kind of went the photo route. But we mostly want to talk about how the colors are evoking their emotion. And when you listen to the album, it's a lot of him singing. It's not really too much hype music. A lot of the songs are very slow, melodic, nighttime type of vibe. That's kind of why I like Drake's Take Care for a nice warm album. Even if we go to Funkadelic's Maggot Brain. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've not heard not one song off this album. I probably have, and it's one of them albums that you just never hear anything about. But based on what it looks like, it hits on all the points. It's warm, It looks exciting and it's bringing energy. Even though it's a warm, darker type of album, the emotion on her face gives me energy, excitement. It looks like she doesn't look like she's in pain. It looks like she's having fun. I don't know what led her up to getting buried alive, but like the head and the dirt with it saying maggot brain just makes me want to click on the album just to give it to listen. I'll probably listen to it after this just to dial in and get a little bit more idea of what the music is that was behind this album. But this is a very famous album cover. A lot of people have tried to recreate this in some way, shape, or form. So for our last of the warmth colors, we're going to go with Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Now, this one is literally so fire because it speaks to school times, right? They got the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which is education. So it's obviously a school type of setting. And then with the album cover, it brings us to a desk. And that's kind of where you'll be sitting to get educated on a person or anything in general. So you're at the desk. But what do people do when they do a desk when they're paying attention, but they're not really paying attention? They sketch and etch on things, right? So you have the sketched out Lauryn, which is still her face, but it's not a picture of her. You know what I'm saying? It's a etching. And it just etched in the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and then you just have a simple pencil up top. I think this is one of the most famous album covers. When you see this, you just know, even if it didn't have the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill at the top, it was just that etching and her sitting at that desk, you would still know. But the album is warm. It's a nice R&B album. It does have some excitement in the album, and the album does bring a lot of energy. It's not a so soft album where it's like too many singy songs like Killing Me Slowly or nothing like that. But it's like back in the school, beating on the desk, beatbox type vibe, like boo boo boo, doo-wop, those type of songs. It gets you excited in that type of way. Miseducation, Lauryn Hill, nice warm R&B album, great cover. So let's talk about cool colors. Cool colors are the blues, the greens, and the purples. They often create a sense of like calming, serenity, and professionalism. The first album for me, gotta go with, it's in the title. It's called Purple Haze. Now, this album has a lot of hits. First of all, classic hip hop. This is gonna be a history lesson too, y'all. Listen to the Cam'ron Purple Haze album. Like, the skits was fire, the whole from top to bottom. And it just probably, that was the top weed, I think, at the time that people were smoking was Purple Hazes. So, why not create an album around that? And Cam'ron is a artist that always picks colors to kind of represent him. If you know him, he's known for the pink furs, the pink Range Rovers. He got a brand called Pink Horsepower. So colors definitely play a strong part into your branding. So when you see Purple Haze or think Purple Haze, you automatically think the Purple album. And for me, this picture obviously is a photo manipulation. He was probably in a studio, took the picture, and then they went and photo manipulated the street curb and the skyline. And then they made everything purple. He wore purple, everything's purple. This album was definitely a calm and serene type of album. It's a lot of like melodic music, once again, smokers music, chill, relax, and spark one type of music, like spark one and relax. So I feel that colors represented the album in its totality. The next cover I have for this is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Now, when you see this cover, it goes into a lot of the greens and greenish, bluish, blackish. It's a rainy day. As you can see, his jacket is wet and it looks like rain in the sky. And if you've heard any songs off of Marvin Gaye, I don't know why you haven't. Literally, the name of the song is What's Going On. It's a very strong, motivational type of music, but it's calm and it's still professional and it's still serene. So I feel the color schemes, once again, match the vibe and the energy of the album. A cold, rainy day. You pop this in. It's the type of music that you want to listen to. It gives you the environment of where you would want to listen to this music. If it's a cold, rainy day and I'm just sitting in my house with my pajamas on, drinking some tea with some Marvin Gaye posted in the back, I'm eating pineapples, looking out the window. You need rainy days to decompress and calm down and become a little bit more serene. So definitely the blues and the greens for this album. It brings you into the environment and the tone of what this album brings to you. This album, Nevermind by Nirvana, is once again another classic album, and it's photography based. You can see a lot of themes through this. There's some sort of photography being manipulated. You want to be able to see the artist or have something represent the artist in the best capacity. So for me, I really love this album cover, and I probably heard songs on this but I don't know any songs off the top of my head. But I just know this album cover is very, very famous. But the album is mostly a blue type of album. As you can see, the color scheme of this is blue. And things I've known from Cobain, I've watched a few documentaries about him and stuff like that. He's definitely an interesting human being. It is a calm type of music. It's a serene type of music. It's music that you just smoke and just decompress and take away from. It's not the song that you use to go turn up at the club with. I like the Nirvana Nevermind album. That definitely a classic album. I think from what I'm seeing, it just looks like what we all chase, like when we're young, the dollar from a youth trying to get $5 out your uncle or your aunt or from your grandma to buy some candy. Money is the motivation through it all. So even till you get to the day that you die, you just want more and more money, or money is always a factor. So I felt this album speaks to that. And it brings it professional too. It gives it a professional, clean vibe. Very minimal cover. The photo speaks 100 words. So let's get into complementary colors. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel that create like high contrast and vibrant looks. The first one I'm going to do that's, I feel like, very vibrant and high contrasty is the Lil Yachty Little Boat album cover. I believe this was his debut album cover. And at this point, he was part of like a thing called the sailing team. So water and stuff is big on him. So it's just him in the middle of a boat. But I feel the colors speak so highly to it that they're, like I said, complementary. The greens and the reds, it gives it Christmas time. And his hair was red. So red was a strong part of his aesthetic then, right? And another one that goes green is he's floating on a sea of money. At this point, he's rich as hell. You know what I'm saying? So he has one of the biggest songs at this time. The sea is green, which is mad money going on. That's how I kind of visually represent all this stuff. And then the red is just a great complementary to the green, because they could have had this same photo and stretched it out all the way to the borders. But instead of doing that, they did a nice red border outline, red boat, red hair, red jumpsuit on a green background. So I feel like this is pretty cool. I think it gives a nice, vibrant, and very contrasty to bring your focus and attention to Little Boat and a little boat. I think this one speaks more to the branding of him more than it speaks to whatever song he had on there at that time. I really feel it was one or two songs. The next album cover I want to talk about is Jimi Hendrix Axis Bold as Love. Okay? So with this album cover, I did not hear any music off of this. I probably know a song or two if I listen to it, but more or less we want to talk about the vibrancy of the colors and how they are complementary. So all the colors here are in the same color spectrum, which is the pink with the orange and then the blues down below. Now I think these are a bunch of different entities, and it's giving me trippy, kaleidoscopy vibes. So I feel you got to sit underneath the sun, smoke one, and just kind of just be floating. But it's giving a lot of energy. So this album doesn't feel like it's going to be a dark or sad album. You could put this in to get ready for a party, pregame. So I really love this album cover, and I like how they use the kaleidoscope. And you still see Jimi Hendrix's face. It's subtle, but it's not all the way there. And then you also see his two band members there, surrounded by all the godly entities. We probably all have seen this album cover, the Outkast Stank On Ya album. It's simple. It's black and white. It's black and white, but what pops is their skin tone. And I think that speaks a lot to what the album was, because this is Bombs Over Baghdad, Sorry Miss Jackson. It's very melodic album, so it still gives a contrast of what's going on. So even though they have a black and white American flag in the background, what stands out of this is their brown and black skin color. It just speaks to being black in America. That's kind of what I'm seeing with this cover. They got to see it from my point of view. They could have went with a, colored background and could have been wearing something else, but he's just wearing a simple white tee. Andre's showing his skin, which shows his nice chocolate melanin. And then they have the black and white American flag in the background. I think it's just tough. Once again, they went with the photography route. Simple, easy, but it's about the creative direction and what you're trying to explain. So once again, it brings strong contrast, and it's not bold colors, but the contrast makes it even harder. It's them standing out from the black and the white flag. There's no drop shadow in the back of them. It's just them standing there in front of this flag. So tough. We're going to move on to the next cover. This word is really hard to say for me, guys, but I'm going to try to give you guys the right terminology, so I'm not just making shit up. So this one is called Analogous Colors. That's all I got for y'all. So the first cover that gets me is Watch the Throne by, The Throne, Kanye West, Jay-Z. Now this cover is just a gold cover. Now I believe Ricardo Tashishi made this cover for them. I'm pretty sure it was some sort of plate or something like that they literally did it in gold or did it in some sort of metal and got it engraved. The colors more or less kind of stand out to you. So it's like they couldn't put their face on it because the two biggest artists, that's kind of whack. So how else can we go about doing this? And this is gold and have like a gold piece of artwork. It's the throne. Gold comes to mind when you think of throne or royalty, right? And with this, I'm pretty sure Jay-Z's a forward-thinking guy. I'm pretty sure even the plate to make this, you could sell that and auction that off, or that plate can be put into an African-American museum or some sort of musical museum, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something like that because of how iconic this album was when it dropped. Very simple. It is very seamless around. It matches up symmetrically each part. So you can cut it down the middle, and then they could have dropped this in 4 parts, and each corner could have been another album cover. You got to think as deep as that. So that's another way that you can go about an album cover, thinking outside of the box. Another cover that uses analogous colors, which are clips till the casket drops. Now this cover uses a bunch of different shades of red. They use like a cartoony vector type of vibe for this one. I think partly because they were with Cause and Nigo and Pharrell in them. So this album cover is by Cause. As you can see, the small little Cause in the corner right there. And it's just the album cover inside the casket with the Clips logo on there very subtly. And then subtly put the 2 X's from Cause on there. But it's all in the red color scheme. It's just different shades of red. The colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. So if the color wheel showed a bunch, the other ones that could have been used are reds and oranges. If the whole cover was red and orange, you could have rocked with that too. But they just used different shades of red, light red, dark red, So I feel like this cover is the best example of analogous colors. Woo, man. Trying to say that word 20 times, analogous, and I probably fucked it up. I'm gonna be honest with you. Let's move to composition. Now with composition, it's the arrangement of different elements in the design that should be balanced and then guide your viewers to a certain focus. Now, I want to go over a few album covers that have really, really good composition. And some of the key concepts include rule of thirds. Now, with the rule of thirds, it's dividing your design into thirds to create focal points. Let's go over a few covers that have great rule of thirds to display great composition and cover arts. This Bad Bunny album cover that has the whole alphabet in it. What is it? YHLQMDLG. I'm glad they did not put any text on the cover because what the hell? It probably stands for something. Have no idea what it means, but nonetheless, it had great rule of thirds. My automatic attention, it has so much going on, but like how it's split up makes me focus on this person riding this bike with this third eye in the middle. So obviously he's awoke. He knows what's going on. He's peeping game. But they're trying to get away from something. That's what it looks like. Because you have the city in the background, burning cars, flying cars. And it looks like the power line has been hit with some sort of electrical surge. It really is giving Stranger Things when I see this. So based on this, I'm guessing the music for this album is kind of electric. It has blue, calm, serenity, color palette. For the most part, rule of thirds. I like how it's split up. On the left side, you have the burning car and the electric line. In the middle, directly in the middle, you have the person riding the bike. And on the right side, you have the car floating as well as some more of the scenic background of what's going on. And then even the clouds open up around his head. So it's not too much going on. The focus is the person's facial expression. The next album I want to talk about is Jay-Z's The Blueprint. Now with this album cover, it exudes definitely a good rule of thirds composition, but it's more or less in the middle. So on the left side, you have a lot of your text, and then you have Jay-Z sitting on a desk. Now he could have been sitting dead in the middle of the desk, and he could have just been looking at you smoking, but they used the composition of up top, somebody looking down on this man smoking a cigar, having a good time. It looks real boss. Even on what he has on the table, it just is more cigars, a cigar cutter, and an ashtray. The table is empty, completely clear, to bring your focus to Jay-Z on his left side. And then on the right side, you even could have had it blank. They could have just had no shoes there or anything like that. But part of having a good photo or anything like that is this rule of thirds concept that I want to get through to you guys, okay? So on the right side here, we have the shoes, and they're obviously all looking at Jay-Z smoking the cigar. So he could have been in a meeting or anything like that. So I just think this is tough. We got this album cover by The Time called, self-titled, The Time. I read something about Morris Day. That might be the lead artist in here, but I don't know. I've literally never listened to this album. But the album cover really attracted me when I was looking for people that have really good rule of thirds composition. And rule of thirds works with if you're doing photo manipulation or photography. Rule of thirds is a basic graphic design functional fundamental that you guys need to know. So this album is definitely symmetrically balanced. The left balances with the middle, that balances with the right. It has a strong triangle hierarchy, and that brings your attention to Morris, I guess this is his name, in the middle, and his supporting cast on the second row, and probably the other head henchman up at the top, looking over everything in front of a building. They could have done it from a low angle, a top angle, a side angle, but they just went straight on to just grab a great image. They went black and white with this one, with just the album cover name in red to bring your attention to a spot to the left. Another key concept is balance. With balance, you have to distribute the visual weight evenly. It could be either symmetrically or asymmetrically. With the SZA SOS album, it draws your eye to the middle, which is rule of thirds, but it's a balanced album. It's symmetrically her in the middle of the ocean. I don't know where she got this humongous diving board, but she probably was sitting at a pool or something like that, had some photography done, and then they could just superimpose an ocean background on the back of it. But it's the placement of where she is. So it just makes her feel all alone. It's calm, it's serene. This is probably where she's going to get her inner thoughts, like going to sit by some water and relax. So colors, blue, plus the balance, which is a symmetrical album, work hand in hand. So definitely a great album. The next one's gonna be Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. It's a photo-based album. And I believe he's in here somewhere. I don't think he's like a place where you can see him. He's really low key, but he's even giving people their time to shine. The people that surround him, that prop him up, and giving the hood a little bit of shine. This album cover was seen by hundreds of millions of people. So being able to give people opportunities to, represent, whether it be a child, a mother, or anything like that, is really, really fire. Now they're sitting in front of the White House, sitting on what looks to be a incapacitated judge of some sort. They're taking over, and they're throwing up their hoods. They got money, change, no t-shirts. It's fire, man. But it has great balance. The white is strong up top, and it's a strong gradient to a nice dark bottom. The whole album cover is fire. And it still uses the strong rule of thirds within the image itself. So rule of thirds, and it has balance. If you split it into 3 sections, you can use each section, and you can use it either way, from the top to the middle to the bottom, or from the side to the middle to the bottom, or to the side to the middle to the side. It has great balance. All right, so another album I want to talk about that has a great balance is Aretha Franklin's Young, Gifted, and Black. And now with this cover, right, it's different than a lot of the other album covers, but it does speak to that Jimi Hendrix trippy type of vibe, and it could be symmetrical or asymmetrical. So this is a direct symmetrical cover. So even if it didn't have the words on here, you could split that cover right down the middle, and it's the same on both sides. It's the same image flipped from the left side to the right side, cut down the middle. It's a kaleidoscopy effect, but it has great balance in the middle of the actual image. And it has good balance on the left side with nice black space, and the right side that really has nice strong black space. And then from the top, if you split it in the middle, it could hold its own weight with that mosaic glass panel or stained glass effect with Aretha's name and title up top. And if you split it in the middle, on the bottom half, it would have her face the 4 different times. So that's what makes a great album cover too, when you look at it from any type of angle. Another key concept I want to talk about is hierarchy. A hierarchy means that you're organizing the elements that's the most important, so that information stands out. A lot of the album covers that we already seen had great hierarchy. You probably heard me say it about the triangles and things like that, and balance throughout. That's all that means. But to speak to the more about the most important information standing out, I want to talk about the Notorious B.I.G.'s Ready to Die album. I think this album is great minimally. It has great balance. It has great rule of thirds. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 levels. The name at the top, somebody who represents it in the middle. And I think this kind of speaks to Bad Boy. I don't think it really speaks to Little Christopher. You know, it looks like it, but Biggie never even had an afro. So this looks more or less like the Bad Boy logo in the middle. And then you got Ready to Die at the bottom. And then they emphasize the big with the red letters, and they emphasize the die in the red letters. So I'm a real strong person of speaking things to existence and the power of the tongue. So this album does, speak a lot to, Biggie dying. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get too deep in the dark into this, but the emphasis on the words that's most important. And that emphasis was Biggie and death will die at this point. Because they could have put the ready in red, but on the right side of the cover, if you split it up, it's Biggie die. Not gonna get too deep into this, but just think about these type of things when you're putting stuff into the universe. For our last essential cover art topic, we got to talk about typography. We're gonna get this in depth a little deeper as we start working on the cover arts and things like that. But I do want to keep this in mind for you guys, because when I see a cover art, fonts are my biggest pet peeve, because just some people just have the ugliest fonts. Fonts can mess up a t-shirt design. Fonts can mess up a poster. Fonts can mess up an album cover. Bad fonts are just icky. So you always want to study your font game, and that will take you further than anything, because if you have good fonts, you'll be all right. I even seen music videos with bad fonts. It's like, why did you use that font? Throws off everything. The choice of fonts can significantly impact your design. So let's consider the following. Some of the stronger fonts for me, I use sans serif a lot, but if we want to do a great representation of serif fonts would be like Jay-Z's 444 album cover. Just the 444 and that Jay-Z type of font. I don't even think it says his name on it either. It just says his 13th studio album. It just is a strong, traditional. Serif fonts usually present a traditional and elegant type of vibe that you're going for, and they're suitable for classic and sophisticated music. And for Jay-Z to have a strong serif font in that 444 font, where it just strictly says real elegant, real sophisticated, his 13th studio album. Like, he didn't even have to say his name. You know who that is. Google it, right? So I feel like that album speaks to his growth, because at this point he's talking about his family and stuff like that. So sophisticated music. Now, if we're talking about serif fonts, once again, I have to mention my favorite, which is sans serif fonts. Sans serif fonts are modern and clean, and they're ideal for contemporary genres. I feel a strong album cover that speaks to this is this Johnny Cash American 5 album is a great representation of sans serif fonts, because it just says Cash. And whenever you see that name, Cash, you just know it's Johnny Cash, especially because he has a specific font that he uses on all his album covers. So he pretty much took this font and it's his font. If he wanted to make a Cash font, this would probably be it. If he wanted to make a whole alphabet. And I just feel like it's a strong representation of just him as an album. He could probably just put his face on it, or put no face on it. He could put a cat in the middle of the road that's been ran over, and it could just say Cash. And that can make you want to click on the album just as strong. But this one is just chill. It's just another one of his installments, Cash. Now, I've seen this album cover called Taku Love Again, and I just think, once again, a strong representation of sans serif fonts. Is a contemporary type of album, chill. Haven't really heard too much music on it. I just clicked on one song and it was real melodic and things like that. They feature people like Jameson and Sango, so I figured he was a singy, chill, vibey type of artist. But I just like the way he put his name in this box, but it's surrounded by a bunch of flowers. So the flowers take up a lot of the energy, but it has good balance, because it brings your eye to that middle part, which is Taku. So now, if you don't know anything about this album, you could just say, oh, the album with the flowers that say Taku. You don't even know it says Love Again or anything like that. It don't even say Love Again on this, but like normally flowers represent love or some sort of love or affection of some sort. So Taku just having the album where it just says EPs, and it says Taku Songs to Make Up To. So what is that when you even look at it? Oh, songs to make up to, got flowers on it. His name Taku. Seems simple and chill. Let me at least click on it to give it a listen. So go check that out. I'm pretty sure he got Jameson on there, so it got to be fire in some way, shape, or form. For the next set of fonts, we got to talk about script fonts. Now, with script fonts are playful and artistic, okay? And they're great for personal and indie styles. And you already know the first cover we got to bring up is Drake's. If you're reading this too late, it's a strong representation of a script type font. It looks like a 5-year-old wrote this, learning their alphabet. It even was able to be memeable. And a lot of Drake's more recent album covers have been memeable, even from the CLB with all the emojis on it. They even made a font for this that you can download on the font. And then people were making their own. If you're reading this, buy me lunch. If you're reading this, will you go out with me? If you're reading this, I know my sneakers is fly. Or if you're reading this, stop staring. Or you know what I'm saying? It was just so many memes that flipped into not only the name of the album, but just the cover and its simplicity. And it has great balance, even how they split it up to take over the whole thing. Because they could have had each word have its own line, but it's right there, dead center, white, it's black, it's contrasty. It has all the elements, you know, for a great cover. If you heard any of these album covers, you don't know what to expect when you look at a cover like this. Oh, damn, he didn't even spend too much time on the cover art. Like, what's the songs looking like? And it was a scrappy mixtapey type of album. It wasn't even an actual album. It was more or less a mixtape when we had those back then. Another strong album that uses great scripting was Daft Punk's Discovery, man. And I just love it because it uses a fire script font, but they jazzed it up a little bit. They got chrome, and their thing is like real electronic and psychedelic type of thing. They even had that rainbow in there really, really subtly. I just love the font on this. They could just take that font and put it on a t-shirt. It's that eye-catching that even if I don't listen to Daft Punk, I'll give this album a listen just because the cover is so hard. That font is just so tough. The chrome, how the colors in the chrome are not just taking away from anything. It complements everything. And it's balanced, central focused album. It's only focused on the most important information, which is the name of the band. And I think even because the album name is Discovery, that's going through all of the spectrums of the rainbow, discovering yourself, who you are. Everything's not so black and white, but it's a black cover with a little bit of coloring, subtle touches in the actual scripted font. So tough font, man. And if we want to do even one more, man, the I Hate Being Bipolar by Yeezy, people thought he was nuts. He was going crazy, legit, bro. And literally, he probably just took this picture on the iPhone while they shot this in Wyoming, in Jackson, Wyoming at this time. So he probably just took a picture of Wyoming and literally wrote this on an iPad with a pencil and was like, yo, I hate being bipolar. It's awesome, which is a contradictory, but they use the greens on top of the blues, which is a complementary color, but it's still in the same color family. And it's just a singular focused, balanced image with the mountains in the middle, sky at the top, ground. So rule of thirds, but it brings your focus and your attention to a bright green scripted font, which is the I Hate Bipolar. It's awesome. My last set of fonts, there's a multitude of different fonts out there, bruh. But the font I want to talk about right now are display fonts. Display fonts are unique and decorative. You usually use a display font when you want to grab attention or something like that. You want to make a loud statement. If we got to talk albums, we got to talk about the classics. Yes, sir. We got to talk about Backstreet Boys' Millennium album. I played this album mug when I was in the youth, man. That and NSYNC. This album was on repeat. Who wasn't listening to the Backstreet Boys? Also, they got a weird documentary on Netflix about their come up and NSYNC. Y'all should go watch that. I'm a real aficionado about the history of music or anything that has to do with pop culture. I watch documentaries on it. I feel that will help you with the history of things. So if you know what had happened in the past, history repeats itself all the time. So it can help you avoid some of the same pitfalls and help you notice certain patterns, whether that's trends in the market and things like that. But that's besides the point. We're talking about display fonts. And this font for Millennium is a tough one. It's a strong, unique cover, strong, unique font choice. And during that time, too, we used a lot of blues and grays and whites for that Y2K type of feel. So the Millennium draws all your attention to just that album. It doesn't draw your attention too much to each individual artist or anything like that. It's just like the Backstreet Boys are there, and then Millennium. And at that point, if you've seen them, a picture of them, you know that's the Backstreet Boys. So them not even putting the Backstreet Boys on here, I'm not even mad at that. But just having that dope, unique font where you probably couldn't have found that font anywhere else. It's not something that everybody had. They probably had a very unique logo treatment made up, and then they just added a nice whiteness to it and a nice outer glow. Nothing too crazy, but the font is custom in itself. I want to show you guys is Akon's Convicted album. Once again, this has great balance, symmetrical balance. So it has Akon on the left and the name of the album, and on the right is him sitting in front of this, yes, in front of the bench, and it looks like he's in some sort of courthouse. And with the album being named Convicted, I think it speaks to whatever he was going through at that time, legal troubles, what have you. And at this time, I think the songs that he had was Locked Up. So having the album named Convicted, you know, plays on what you're doing and even more. Oh, let's put him in a courthouse. I know that's what they were saying in the room. And somebody's like, genius, you know what I'm saying? So great for the branding, but it's not cool for speaking it into existence. Probably I would have done something that was breaking away. He's walking out of a courtroom or something like that. If the album is Convicted, obviously you're going to jail. You're going to jail. The Convicted font looks like it's a key of some sort. So it's the key to set him free. So the music is the key to set him free. Even though the name of the album is Convicted with a K, that old English type of font that's been made into being the middle of the key, on the left side being the N, and then the front end being where you poke the key, and the key is kind of poking at his head. So in my head, I look at so many layers to it. I'll be like, oh, the key is unlocking his brain, and the brain, your mind, will set you free even though you're convicted. So while I'm listening to this music, it has those warm tones. It got a lot of oranges and yellows. So even the song I'm Locked Up is R&B-ish type of song. And he is a singer at this point. He's not a rapper or anything like that. We're going to go this in depth in later sections as we actually get to creating the cover art. What fonts pair best with what fonts, not having too many fonts and stuff like that. But that's all for today. But remember to join our Discord channel. Tune into the conversation for ongoing support or any questions that you have from this section, and to reinforce anything that you've learned. I'll see you in the next class where we'll dive even deeper into the Photoshop tools and techniques.